Well, hello. Ta-da! How's everybody doing today? Having a happy day, I hope. Hope you can hear me back here. We are sharing our workspaces today. It is the New Orleans school system is sending the kids back to school, or maybe not. And my partner is an educator and having to contend with putting whether or not the kids come back and dealing with the teachers, and it's been no fun. It's been no fun, friends and neighbors. If you know anybody who has a teacher in your life, and well, just pray for them. That's all I have to say. So, how's everybody doing out there? How's everybody faring? Has been having a good week, let's hope. Keeping your stuff together. I just had a conversation with my psychiatrist, and let's take this off, huh? I've gotten so used to using that it's second nature to me now, and so I hope it has become so with you too. And I literally just got off the phone with my psychiatrist, who checks in on me via telemedicine, and I told him that I was suffering from crippling anxiety, that I was a middle-aged Jewish man living in the South who suffered from crippling anxiety. But I said this was new to me, that I hadn't really suffered it in this way before, and his response was, correct. He said that this was the proper response to the stimulus given, and that he's given me all the drugs you can possibly give. So he said, keep going to the gun range and have a good time and try and play music. And he recommended that these office hours are a really cool thing to do, to attempt to try and have a regular schedule and say howdy to folks. And so there we go. My psychiatrist says that this is a good thing. Before we start, part of the thing that I'd like to do with these office hours as well is make an unreserved and unsolicited endorsement for a small business or product that I think you should know about. And today, it is, can you see that, ladies and gentlemen? And everything in between. This is Dip Me Snacks. This is a Louisiana product. Dip Me. This is their French onion, though they have many other different kinds. I'm fond of the herb and garlic as well. But we were supping upon this last night, folks. I want to let you know that Robert, who lives here in New Orleans, all of the cows are based here in Louisiana. I'm telling you, if you can find this in your store, I think they've got it at most of the stores. They actually do have it in the Louisiana area. So look for this. Ask for it by name if you get a chance. They've got it's wonderful. It's I'm not making this up. I wouldn't tell you about this. I found out that I was friends with a guy after I'd had his product. But it's a small operation. The cows, he doesn't know the cows' names, but he does have an air-conditioned room set up for them in the summertime, is what I found out, with misters and everything, and so they're very loved, and it comes through, friends. Dip Me. Ask for it by names. There are many different flavors. I recommend also the spicy jalapeno, which I put on my enchiladas. So there you have it. Unsolicited endorsement to begin our show. Okay. Didn't have a lot of questions this go around. So one of the questions was about the picture that I posted. And first off, the picture was of a little dance band from the Texas Frontier. And they all done up in their Sunday best with their cowboy hats and their Sunday best. And there's a couple trumpet players and a fiddle player and a bassist. And some eagle-eyed musicians noticed that the bass only had 3 strings. Now, modern basses today, the way that folks are taught in the dogma in the schools, is that basses have 4 strings. And he was like, holy cow, what's the deal with only 3 strings? And the fact of the matter is that music is a moving target. And this thing that we call classical music, which only we in America call it, it too is a moving target. It's not sedentary. So the composers are constantly in a state of composing music, oftentimes writing music for instruments that don't yet exist. So there was a point where basses only had two and then sometimes three strings. That's as low as they needed to go. They were only ever playing one note in something called continuo. So you didn't need to have more than three strings on a bass. They weren't. No one was writing for anything lower than that. It wasn't until we got into the Romantic era of music in the middle and late 1800s, and especially when composers like Mahler came along, where they needed an extra string. They needed to go low. So all of a sudden, those three strings seemed pretty puny, and they started taking the necks off of those basses and putting a fourth. Also, you'll see a lot of basses that have five strings on them, and you think to yourself, what's up with that? Well, the fact is that they were actually not even basses. They were actually part of a member of a family called the viol de gamba. And the viol de gamba was a whole other genus of instruments. Think of them of like species. Like if there were humanoids over here and chimpanzees over here, it kind of grew up alongside, but all the other different, like the altos and the tenors and sopranos went away, but the bass stayed, and those instruments had five strings. So we still used those. We adapted those for quote-unquote classical music as time went on. And this fifth string was really, really handy because it could really play those really, really low notes. So much so that modern bass players today, when you see them in a symphony, you will see oftentimes that if they have a four-string bass, they will have an extender, this long extension that allows them to play a low C note. I know I'm getting very technical, I apologize. It'll allow them to play a low C note, or they will have a fifth string that will allow them to play C and even lower. And this is entirely for playing what I like to call dead German music. So if you want a career playing dead German music, then you absolutely must go get the tool to go do that. I, on the other hand, I'm a whole lot more interested in playing music much more like the fellow pictured on the photo that I shared. I'm playing alive music for alive people. I'm not going to be using an amplifier. And when you have an acoustic instrument that only has three strings going on the top of a bass, it's rocking the top a lot, but if you put a fourth string on there, it's not rocking the top so much. Believe it or not, that's called physics. A three-string bass, therefore, is actually a third louder than a four-string bass. Boy, I'm really geeking out on you folks, I know. Also, the person who noted said they looked at the picture of the bass and said, "What's with the peg on the bass?" And I was like going, well, that's what we used to call it. We called it a peg. It was literally a carved wooden peg. Today, because we're so much taller, because we eat a lot better and live a lot longer, because we're so much taller, we have these long things we call end pins, and we can adjust them and make them tall. I'm 6'1", 330. The bass players back then, they'd be lucky to be 5'5", 5'6", would be a tall guy. So they would just go and get like a little plug of wood. And then they called that an end pin. It was just a pin, right? Or a peg. And so those are the answers to those questions. If you're curious what I'm going on about, go back and look to the photo that I posted showing the little hillbilly band with the three-string bass. Why are there three-string basses? As it turns out, people ask me why. That's the bass I play. I play a three-string bass. People ask me why am I doing it? I'm not doing it necessarily to be obstreperous or iconoclastic necessarily. But the fact of the matter is that I ran a place in Austin called Violins Etc., which ironically specialized in basses for 13, 14 years, and I had my pick of the litter of the basses there. I could literally play any one that I ever wanted, and when it came to having one custom built, I had a small 5/8 size 3-string bass made for me because I had done over a decade of research on what I needed a bass to do and how to get the best sound out of it, and to play the kind of music that I planned on playing. I planned on playing music of living traditions, of living, dancing, living, breathing people. And to do so, that's what I found with the instrument. If I was playing another kind of music, if I was playing music, say, for listening, or what they call so-called jazz or so-called performance music, I think I'd have a different instrument. And I do carry an Eminence, a beautiful Eminence bass, which has 4 strings on it. And if I am called to play a concert or something like that, or if I get hauled off overseas or something and they want me to do a particular kind of music, I have no problem playing a 4-string bass. But here in New Orleans, if I'm playing gut bucket music and I want to get some people out on the floor, or if I'm out playing with a Polish dance orchestra, or if I'm out playing with Michael Winograd and I'm playing the Bulgars and the Freilachs, man, get me a 3-string bass and I will booty motivate. So that is the question about the 3-string bass. I want to go on to say that I did not get a lot of questions today. So if you do have a question, please let me know in the comments and I will try and get to it. So I got one question, just one singular question from an old friend, and he wanted me to tell stories about a venue that I think he and I actually met at in South Austin. And it's one of those stories, man, that, like, it all depends on, like, your best day could be somebody else's worst day, you know, and you may think of somebody being the nicest guy you ever met, but he may to you be the worst person on earth. It all depends on your perspective and your experience of that person. And never was this more true than it was with a venue in South Austin called Jovita's. Now, it wasn't much to look at when I first started going there. It was just this tiny little dinerish looking place on South First Street in Austin, Texas, back when Austin was still a little town. It wasn't like the big place it was. I mean, in fact, in my case, I thought South Austin was far away, so I didn't even go down there. I lived up by I lived up in Hyde Park by the university, and so my life was up there. I mean, this is how long ago this was. We considered neighborhoods to be provincial at the time. I would never cross the river to get down to South Austin. But, you know, Danny Barnes, my partner from Bad Livers, lived down there, and sometimes we would have rehearsals. And there was plenty of restaurants around there, but I'd heard I'd heard about the place, and it was cheap. So I'd go in there and pick up a tortilla soup. Tortilla soup, you can't screw tortilla soup up. Also, it's cheap, and you get free chips and salsa, and so you can make a bowl of tortilla soup really go far if you keep putting them crushed tortillas and more salsa in there. And when you've only got $7 for your lunch and dinner, and you're a broke-ass musician in Austin, you can make that go far. So Jovita's was a regular stop in that respect. Now, they had a garage out on the side of the building, and they started talking about getting live music in there. And I don't rightly remember when it was that we began our relationship there, but Bad Livers got in there real early when we were first starting out. And when we first started out, we actually had 2 bands. We had a band that did American traditional music in our own way, and that was called Bad Livers. And then we had another band that played Black American music, kind of in our own way, and that was called the Jazz Pharaohs. And I played tuba, and we had a guitar player, and we had Danny Barnes on tenor banjo in that band. And I know that we got a gig there. And we got kind of like a regular gig there, and we started playing there as the Jazz Pharaohs for a while. And then they had other bands play there, and it was just like a sleepy little neighborhood joint. A place opened up next door that turned into kind of like a frat bar place that had live music. So the area kind of started to pop after a while, and there was in Austin a solid culture of live music. People really did move there with the expectation that they were going to involve themselves in the culture of live music, something that's utterly foreign today. But the deal was you could play there, they'd feed you, and you'd make a little buck. They'd pay you like, I forget what it was, like $25 for 3 sets and dinner or something like that, something ridiculous. Now, as Bad Livers kind of took off and became kind of a name group, we still wanted to play in town and still wanted to keep our musical chops up, but we didn't want to, use the brand name Bad Livers, because that had value. We could make 4 figures playing locally under that name, but if you played all the time, you wouldn't make that money. But we were, folk musicians. We were functionary folk musician guys, and we wanted to play all the time. So we knew this cat named Eric Hokanen, wonderful musician, genius musician, and I'll tell you a tale here in a second. But we put together a little group with him. We called it Barnes, Hokanen, and Rubin. And what people don't realize is that really was the Bad Livers. The Bad Livers on stage was me and Barnes and this cat named Ralph White, who put on quite the show of jumping up and around and playing, but really technically could not play very well, but sawed around a lot, and he had this kind of street urchin look and made a lot of racket, but in fact didn't really play very well. So when we went to the studio, when we needed a fiddle player, it was Eric Hokanen. It was either Eric Hokanen or Danny Barnes played the fiddle. So what people didn't realize is actually the real Bad Livers were playing under this other name. We first Bad Livers played around town under a moniker called the Sawdust Boogers, but then people caught on to that, and we couldn't do that anymore. And then we just started playing around with Eric under the name the Mad Cat Trio. And one of the few places we were able to do it, I'm telling you this story because one of the few places we were able to do it was at Jovita's. And as it turned out, we got like a regular Thursday gig there. And even when we were on the road, Eric Hokanen would hold it down for us while we were on the road. And we would come back, and it was great. It was $50 and dinner, and if we had a girlfriend or a wife or something, they'd feed them too. No problem. But the thing is there was always something a little weird about the joint. There was this guy named Brad. I think his name was Brad. Oh, he was always, he was the one that dealt with the bands, but he always had to run everything past this guy named Mayo. Now, Mayo was this guy who basically, it was like central casting, get us a Mexican prison gangbanger. He literally, we call, his name was Mayo, short for Armando, but we called him Malo. Spanish for bad. And as Howard says, he did threaten to stab him. He was, let's put it this way, for those people who may have done bad things in their lives, who they would recognize this guy immediately. Now, if you were like just a civilian and lived a good life, you would have had no idea how truly dangerous this character was. But and you would just, he had a big smile, and but he kind of hinted around at being a bad guy. But he was a truly bad guy. We called him Milo, and they treated women badly there. They treated their wait staff there abysmally. They only hired young women, and they treated them badly, and they just were never around very, very long. But the only constants there were this kid Brad, who booked it, worked as an assistant manager, and because they couldn't keep help, had to go be a waiter. And this guy, Mayo, who just always seemed to be around, always grinning, always drinking a beer. He was a picadillo, as they say. He had a toothpick in his mouth, or in other words, he had a beer in his mouth so often it looked like a toothpick, a picadillo. And it was, let's put it this way, it was hinky. It was like, it felt like right off the bat, like, these guys are weird. But it's just a venue. You don't think too much about it. You just, like, if you're in the business long enough, you know that people who run venues are not exactly, let's say, Boy Scouts. If you're in the business long enough, you know that they're you don't survive by paying everybody their bills or paying everybody fair. That's a fact. So, Mad Cat Trio's playing there on Thursdays. Getting back to my story, we're playing there on Thursdays, and we've developed this great little following, and we're actually kind of packing the place out. So much so that they've actually built. They're beginning to build infrastructure to the place. They've pushed out this back garage. They've put up these doors. They have fans. They've got a better PA system. I'm thinking, well, they're making some money. And we're packing them in. And we're getting a guarantee on Thursdays of $50 a man for 3 guys. Right? Not, Thursday night, dinner, $50 a man. Look, I finally say, after we get back off the road, I finally say, look, we've been doing this for a while. It's a win-win. We've been bringing people in here for you. Say, Brad, get back to Mayo. Let's get a raise. Can we get a raise? We've been doing this for, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years. Can we get a raise? And just $75 bucks. What's it going to kill you? What's it going to kill you to give $75 a man for 3, right? Well, I don't hear back from him at all. But what I do see is that we've been taken off the schedule unceremoniously, and our Thursdays have been given to another musician. Now, ironically, that other musician is a guy who's a friend of mine who ended up having that slot for years and years and years after, maybe even a decade. His name is Cornell Hurd, and Cornell Hurd went down there with a 7-piece band for my $150. So I showed up with 3 at $50 a man, but a fellow musician decided they wanted that gig and went down there with 7. And I don't know how long that lasted for them. But that's a little window into the music business right there. Later, that kind of that whole experience kind of soured me on the place, and I'd heard from other musicians that they'd had a hard time. They had a hard time getting paid when they played there. A lot of people had like at the end of the night had a hard time finding Mayo. Money from the door went went missing, or a certain amount of skimming and backsheesh. You understand that a certain amount of that's going to happen, but it's crazy. I mean, I think there's some folks who are watching right now actually have shared with me offline stories of having to go get hot with the management to try and get paid. They either get shorted or didn't get paid or got paid late or something like that. And we're talking about chump change. We're talking about $50, $75. I mean, literally nothing. A little, a grosse garnish, as we say. And as my friend Howard Range just said, and threatened to get stabbed for asking more, right? So, then it really saddened me to find out that one of my great mentors, had moved his regular gig over there, and that's the great Don Walser. So when Don Walser and his group moved over there, by that time they had made even more infrastructure to this place, that they had built into their parking lot. They had built this huge other stage and 3 times the seating. And now, on the days that Don played, they had to hire a guy to direct parking. It was insane. I can't even imagine how much money they were bringing in, and I can't imagine how much money they weren't giving Don. My relationship was such with the Walser families that I just did my best to not ask questions when it came to how they were being treated in those situations. But if they asked my opinion, I'd tell them. But they didn't ask my opinion about this one, and it was one of those situations where they seemed to feel like everything was going great, but once again, there seemed to be something hinky going on the back. The wait staff didn't change from week to week. The only things that were standard was there was this rat-faced little dude who ran it, named Brad, who was still waiting tables and looked like he was coked out of his mind, or at least behaving that way. And this really unpleasant guy who looked like he walked off a movie set, and really affected this look, right? That he was like a bad guy. So this is what really gets me, is that we experience this. We experience this as workers in this environment for years, and then we'd go out of town and someone goes, "Oh, hey man, do you play Jovitas? That's such a cool place. I went down there and saw Cornell Hurd. We danced all night. It was so great." And I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to say, those people treat women very badly there? I mean, like, those people there, they short the local bands that play there very badly. I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to rain on their parade? What are you going to do? Are you going to say to them, "I think those are really bad people"? Like, I have a gut reaction that tells me that the people who run those places is really terrible. Like, my skin crawls when I see that manager guy, like that owner guy, like just, there's something terribly bad there. So let's just sit on that for a second. If you are someone who is from out of Austin, or even someone who went there and danced to Don Walser, or even my band, and enjoyed us, and I want you to just chew on this for a second. It was, and I'm gonna pull this out so that I can read it and say it correctly. It was January 21st of 2013. It was called Operation Muerte Negra, a combined multi-task force operation, in with which one Armando Maya Pardo, along with 13 other associates, were busted for along with $38,000 in drugs, money, and guns, all on site right there at Jovitas. For over a decade, Mayo and the staff of Jovita's had been running $6,000 of heroin a day out of that venue. Did I mention that Mayo was a member of the Texas Syndicate prison gang? And that it's believed that he was a person of interest in the death of it was believed that he was hired by the Yassine brothers. By the way, you should look this up. Yassine, Yassine, the Yassine brothers. That's another good old Austin story. Who were allegedly believed to be running the coke trade out of Austin, Texas, and Mayo was a person of interest in the disappearance of their accountant, and it is believed that accountant now resides under the parking lot at the South Park Meadows parking lot down there off of I-35. Those of you in Austin know where I'm talking about and what I mean. So, all those good times there at Jovita's, dancing to the music of Don Walzer, playing with Eric Hoekenen, seeing High Noon, bringing friends in from out of town, all of that was a front for $6,000 of heroin being pushed out per day. As it turns out, they didn't have a chance to put Mayo away. He died in prison while he was awaiting trial. Oh, I should mention the Yassine brothers. Look them up, because evidently their coke money went to go fund Hezbollah. You know, Austin, man, old Austin, man. I got to tell you, that's the old Austin I remember. This new Austin, it's not there anymore. Yes, I agree, Dot. We do have to change this culture. I tend to feel. Also, I've been talking with some of the older musicians that I work with, and we've been seeing these save the venue. The federal money needs to go and save these venues. And I'm thinking, these venues in many cases cut our throats, and did so gleefully. They skimmed us and lowballed us and stole from us on a regular basis. And now that we have nothing, and we have no way to make our money, now these venues, they all of a sudden they want a handout. Well, I think, in my opinion, I think we have a new model now. I think that we don't really require this middleman any longer. I think that we have new ways of approaching our audiences that are positive, that don't have to do with exploitation, that have to do with the workers taking over the means of their own production. And in this downtime, I think that's what we should focus on. I don't think we should focus on propping up proven business models which put us down. I think we should take this time and be creative on finding ways that we together can find business models that will lift us up. What do you think? You got an idea? I think my friend Dot's got an idea. Dot's got a great idea. You should look up their service. It's a .singingserenade.com, I believe, and we'll put a link to it. And that's an example. But I think there are creative ways. Creative ways. We need to use the creativity that we did to become musicians in the first place, and to learn a G chord and learn how to sing, we should be able to do the same. We should be able to do the same thing in moving forward in a healthy new environment. Thank you, Dot. I want you to check out Dot Rose Levine's service there and see that business model and sign up for it if that's something that works for you. So I don't have any other questions. I don't really have any other people ask me any questions. I told you my little story about Jovitas. I gave you my unrestricted and unsolicited pitch for Dip Me snacks, which I strongly recommend that if you can find this, you get you some. That's Dip Me. It's the finest sour cream based snack dip you are ever going to put in your mouth. I promise you. No lie. And another question for you bearded people. Am I the only guy? Check this out. I've been having to like trim my I put on my mask now, and then I'm actually literally trimming my beard so that it doesn't so that I can like wear the mask and still have the billy goat thing here, because the thing is that if it's not really a beard unless you can tug on it and do the Jewish yes. What does the Rambam say about that? Indeed. Well, I didn't really have anything prepared. Friends. Maybe I could do a random reading. That sound like fun? Oh, get in from my gun here. Oops. Oh, no. Let's see. Here we go. Fats Waller's band was playing in West Virginia one night. It's about Fats Waller. When a madam closed her house and brought all of her girls to hear the music. Autry said she asked for a certain tune. Fats says, "I'm very sorry. We don't have that tune." The madam goes, "You recorded it." "Well, no, I don't think so," says Fats. "Don't tell me," says the madam. "I have it on my joint in the jukebox." Fats goes, "Hey, fellas, did we record this?" The guys don't remember. Fats told his valet, "Go out and look for this." The guy came back with a record. We took it into the dressing room and played it on the machine. "I'll be damned," Fats said. "We did make it, didn't we?" They had to learn it in the backstage and go out and play it for all the ladies. Fats Waller from Jazz Anecdotes. A book I strongly recommend you pick up. So, there you have it. Friends and neighbors, if the good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise, we will see you next Thursday here on Office Hours. Once again, if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to send me a direct message or a comment in the comment sections. I'm always checking them. Man, I sure do appreciate that you've taken the time out to say howdy. And if you're not watching with me live, I know there's a couple hundred of you watching afterwards, and I sure do appreciate you. And I want you to stay safe. And when I say stay safe, I mean stay safe. Stay safe. There's a lot of input out there. And that input is not set up to make you feel good right now. So do what you can to stay safe. Safe. All right. So y'all take care of yourself, and literally, because as you know, I am fond of saying, we want to talk to you, not about you.